Chapter 34. Ruskin had walked into the playground with his two best friends, Elvis and Sparky. Corky, the new caretaker, was sweeping the playground. The three boys rushed up to Corky. "You live on my street," said Ruskin. "Your name's Corky Pigeon." "That's right," replied Corky. "Are you a teacher?" asked Elvis. "No, I'm the new caretaker." "What does a caretaker do exactly?" asked Sparky. "I look after the school," Corky said. "I sweep the playground and mend the broken light bulbs and clean all the windows." Elvis looked up at the school. "There are a lot of windows," he said. "It must take you ages to clean them." "Oh yes," Corky said, "it takes me ages, my dear boy. Sometimes I wish I never had to clean another window ever again." And from that day, Ruskin and Corky became good friends. They talked about plays and books and the dramas of Shakespeare. Elvis asked Ruskin, "Why does Corky like you so much?" "I don't know," Ruskin answered. "He just does." "He doesn't like me," Elvis said, "but I don't care. I think he's a silly white-haired old man." Soon after that, Corky gave Ruskin a football as a present, and Elvis stole the ball and started to grow, and everything changed. Ruskin's thoughts of the past were interrupted by someone knocking at the street door. He heard his mum answer it and then call at the stairs, "Ruskin, it's for you." No one ever called for Ruskin, at least not since he'd stopped being friends with Elvis and Sparky. Ruskin went to the top of the stairs and looked over the landing. Corky was standing at the front door. "Hello, my dear boy," he said. "Hello," Ruskin said softly. "Can I talk to you?" asked Corky. A pause. "Please?" Ruskin went downstairs. The two of them sat on the curb outside. Ka-clunk went the drain in front of them. For a while they sat in silence. Then Ruskin noticed that Corky was holding something. He looked closer and saw that it was the metal helmet with the torch on it. "What are you doing with that?" asked Ruskin. "Are you going into the darkness again?" "No," replied Corky. "This helmet's for you." But I don't deserve it," Ruskin said. "I ran away from you in the school playground and Elvis has stolen the medal you gave me and all I've got left is a pin." Corky smiled and shook his head. "That doesn't matter, my dear boy," he said. "A pin is a useful thing to have." But there are other things as well," stammered Ruskin. "Listen," Corky said, "nothing matters, only that we remain friends. You understand me? That's the only important thing." "So you still want me for a friend?" Ruskin asked. "I'll always want you for a friend," Corky said. They hugged each other. "Corky," said Ruskin, "I'm still curious about what you did to get the medal. Will you tell me the story?" "Oh, I'm so tired," Corky said. "Can't it wait a while, my dear boy?" "Please," pleaded Ruskin. Corky sighed and said, "Well, I'll tell you as much as I can before tiredness overtakes me." Corky took a deep breath. "When I was a child about your age, I had no friends. Don't ask me why, it was just the way it was. I think other children thought me strange because all I wanted to talk about was the theatre and actors and actresses. So I played alone for most of the time, and my favourite place to play was the dump." "What's the dump?" asked Ruskin. "Well, it's not there anymore," said Corky, "but it used to be an area of waste ground. I used to play there every day. It was great fun. And then one day I found something." Corky yawned. "What was it?" asked Ruskin, eyes wide. "At first I couldn't make it out," said Corky. "It was sticking out of the ground. It was pointed and shiny like the head of a gigantic silver fish." Corky yawned again. "Come on," urged Ruskin. "No, my dear boy, please forgive me, but I'm far too tired," Corky said, rubbing his eyes. "I'll finish the story tomorrow." "But," began Ruskin. "Tomorrow," said Corky. Ruskin smiled and nodded. "Now," said Corky, "time for bed." Corky stood up and walked down Lizard Street. His walking stick made harsh tapping sounds on the cracked pavement. When he got to his front door, Corky turned and waved to Ruskin. Ka-clunk went the drain. Ruskin waved back. Eek went the pub sign. Corky went into his house. Corky closed the door. Ruskin put the tin helmet on and switched on the torch. The beam of light shone all the way down Lizard Street. Ruskin walked up to the dragon and the golden penny. He shone the beam of light at the sign with the tiny green crocodile on it. There it is, thought Ruskin, the baby that became Krindlekrax. He stood at the sign for a long time, listening to it go eek in the nighttime breeze. On his way home, he suddenly felt an overwhelming desire to knock on Corky's door, wake him up and tell him he loved him. But he resisted. After all, it would be unfair to disturb Corky's dreams to tell him something he could be told in the morning. It could wait until tomorrow, just like Corky finishing his story. Both things could wait until tomorrow. Ruskin walked home. The noises of Lizard Street echoed around him. Ka-clunk, eek, da-boing, tshoo. The next day when Ruskin got up, he looked out of his bedroom window to say, "Good morning, Lizard Street," and saw an ambulance parked outside Corky's house. 2 men were putting a stretcher in the back of the ambulance. The stretcher had a white sheet over it. For a moment, Ruskin didn't move. He just watched the ambulance, and the 2 men with the stretcher, and the people of Lizard Street standing nearby. Mr. Lace was there, wearing his scarf and sucking pencils. Mrs. Walnut was there, smelling of potatoes. Dr. Flowers was there, clutching a handkerchief and sneezing noisily. Mr. Flick was there, in his green waistcoat with big brass buttons. Mr. and Mrs. Cave were there, smoking cigars. Elvis was there, bouncing his ball. Sparky was there, saying yes sir to Elvis. Everyone was there, except Ruskin saw something on the pavement next to the ambulance. At first he thought it was a long twig, but it wasn't a twig. It was a stick, a walking stick like the one that belonged to Corky. "Corky," said Ruskin softly, then louder, "Corky!" He ran downstairs. His mum and dad were peering round the front door. "Something's happened to Corky," Ruskin cried. "Don't interfere," said Winston. "He needs me," Ruskin said, pushing past his dad. "It's not my fault," said Winston. Ruskin ran down the street and up to the stretcher. He clutched at the white sheet. "Don't, Ruskin," said Mrs. Walnut. "There's nothing you can do." "It happened early this morning," said Dr. Flowers. "We found him on the pavement," said Mr. Cave. "He was on his way to school," said Mr. Lace. "He must have had a heart attack," said Mrs. Cave. "Yes," they all murmured, "a heart attack." The doors of the ambulance closed and it drove away. The street was very quiet. Ruskin picked up Corky's walking stick and stared at everyone. He was trembling and his eyes were full of tears. Ruskin knew it wasn't a heart attack. He knew that after all these years, Krindlekrax had finally got Corky. "It's all your fault," Ruskin cried. "Every one of you." And he pointed at Dr. Flowers, saying, "It's your fault because 11 years ago you said the pub sign needed painting." Then he pointed at Mr. Lace, saying, "And it's your fault because you suggested Mr. Cave copy a crocodile." Then he pointed at Mr. Flick, saying, "And it's your fault because you agreed with Mr. Lace." Then he pointed at Mr. Cave, saying, "And it's your fault because my dad wanted to be your friend." And he pointed at Mrs. Cave, saying, "And it's your fault because you went into hospital to have Elvis." And he pointed at Mrs. Walnut, saying, "And it's your fault because you fell asleep and let the crocodile escape." Ruskin ran back home. He pushed past his mum and dad and rushed up the stairs. At the top step, he turned round and pointed at his mum, saying, "And it's your fault because you threw toast down the drain." Then he pointed at his dad, saying, "And it's your fault because you stole the crocodile in the first place." Ruskin ran into his room. He flung open his window. "I hate you, Lizard Street," he screamed, his voice louder than anyone had ever heard it before. "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you." Ruskin lay in bed. Spread out across the blankets in front of him were Corky's walking stick, the tin helmet with the torch, and the pin from the medal. Tears dripped constantly from Ruskin's eyes and soaked the pillows and mattress. Wendy came up to see Ruskin. "Kiss?" she said. "No," Ruskin said. "Tea?" "No." "Toast?" "No." "Baked beans on toast?" "No." "Poached eggs on toast?" "No." "Scrambled egg on toast?" "No." "Fried egg on toast?" "No." "Then what do you want?" Wendy asked. "I want Corky back," Ruskin replied. Wendy sat beside Ruskin and stroked his forehead. "He's not coming back, darling," she said. "You've got to understand that. He's dead. We've all got to die sometime. This is just the first time you've experienced it. Corky's body got tired, that's all." "No," Ruskin said. "Krindlekrax got him." "What's Krindlekrax?" "The giant crocodile from the sewers, the one that Dad stole from the zoo, the one that cracks our pavement and scorches our bricks and digs up our roads, the one that's been searching for Corky for 11 years, and now it's got him." Wendy shook her head and said, "Oh, Polly Wolly Doodle all the day. Where do you get these stories from? You must get up. Everyone in Lizard Street is worried about you." "I don't want to see anyone," Ruskin said. "Everything that is me hurts. My toenails hurt, my hair hurts, my eyelashes hurt, my teeth hurt. I feel tired all the time and I can't stop crying. There's an ugly taste in my mouth that I can't get rid of, and when I fall asleep I dream that Corky is alive and the ambulance was a mistake." "Have some tea," Wendy said. "Then you'll feel better. I've got some chocolate biscuits." But the thought of chocolate biscuits reminded Ruskin of Corky, so he started crying again. "Corky can't be gone," Ruskin said, weeping. "How can he be gone when he didn't finish his story?" Later, Winston came up to see him. "Want a cup of tea yet?" asked Winston. "No." "Toast?" "No." "Baked beans on toast?" "No." "Poached egg on toast?" "No." "Scrambled egg on toast?" "No." "Fried egg on toast?" "No." "Then what do you want?" Winston asked. "I want Corky back," Ruskin replied. Winston left the bedroom and went downstairs. Ruskin tried to sleep, but he kept on being woken up by the sound of Elvis's ball, da-boing, and the squeaking of the pub sign, eek, and the wobbling of the drain, ka-cluck. Lizard Street was continuing as normal. But how could it, Ruskin thought? How could people continue as if nothing had happened? How could Mr. Lace continue teaching and sucking his pencils? How could Mrs. Walnut open her shop? How could Dr. Flowers keep on being a doctor and sneezing? How could Mr. Flick open the cinema and show Henry V on his damaged screen? How could Mr. and Mrs. Cave open the pub, serve drink, talk, smoke cigars? How could Elvis continue bouncing the ball, followed by Sparky, who continued to say, "Yes, sir"? How could his mum, Wendy, continue making tea and toast? How could his dad still look after fluffy animals and say, "It's not my fault"? How could St. George's School continue with its school play? How could everyone eat breakfast and dinner and watch television and go to bed and dream their dreams? Ruskin imagined Corky's house empty and collecting dust, a packet of chocolate biscuits uneaten, the seats unsat, the lights unlit, the carpets untrod. All those little things that Corky had collected throughout his life. All the things he knew, the things he'd seen, the plays, the films, the books he'd read. Everything was gone, invisible now, like a wonderful library burned to the ground. Ruskin started to weep again. "I wish I could stop crying," Ruskin said to himself, "but I can't. It's as if my whole body is full of tears."